The Legend of Zelda.
The Legend of Zelda is a high fantasy-themed action-adventure game series created by Japanese game designers Shigeru Miyamoto, Takashi Tezuka and Eiji Aonuma. It was developed and published by Nintendo, with some portable installments outsourced to Flagship Capcom, Vanpool, and Grezzo. Considered one of Nintendo's most important and popular franchises, its gameplay consists of a mixture of action, adventure, and puzzle solving. The series centers primarily on Link, the playable character. Link is often given the task of rescuing Princess Zelda and Hyrule from Ganondorf, a Gerudo thief who is the primary antagonist of the series. However, other settings and antagonists have appeared throughout the games, with Vati being a strong secondary antagonist during the lifespan of the Game Boy Advance. The story commonly involves a relic known as the Triforce, a set of 3 omnipotent golden triangles. The protagonist in each game is usually not the same incarnation of Link, but a few exceptions do exist. The Legend of Zelda series consists of 17 official games on all of Nintendo's major consoles, as well as several spin-offs. An American animated series based on the games aired in 1989, and individual manga adaptations which are officially endorsed and commissioned by Nintendo have been produced in Japan since 1997. As of 2011, the series has sold over 67 million copies.
Overview. Gameplay.
The Legend of Zelda games feature a mixture of puzzles, action, adventure battle gameplay, exploration, and questing. These elements have remained constant throughout the series, but with refinements and additions featured in each new game. Later games in the series also include stealth gameplay, where the player must avoid enemies while proceeding through a level, as well as racing elements. Although the games can be beaten with a minimal amount of exploration and side quests, the player is frequently rewarded with helpful items or increased abilities for solving puzzles or exploring hidden areas. Some items are consistent and appear many times throughout the series, such as bombs and bomb flowers, which can be used both as weapons and to open blocked or hidden doorways, boomerangs, which can kill or paralyze enemies, keys for locked doors, magic swords, shields, and bows and arrows, while others are unique to a single game. Though the games contain many role-playing elements, Zelda 2 was also the only one to include an experience system. They emphasize straightforward hack-and-slash style combat over the strategic, turn-based or active time combat of games like Final Fantasy. The game's role-playing elements, however, have led to much debate over whether or not the Zelda games should be classified as action role-playing games, a genre on which the series had a strong influence. Every game in the main Zelda series has consisted of 3 principal areas: an overworld in which movement is multi-directional, allowing the player some degree of freedom of action. Areas of interaction with other characters, merely caves or hidden rooms in the first game, but expanding to entire towns and cities in subsequent games, in which the player gains special items or advice. And dungeons, areas of labyrinthine layout, usually underground, comprising a wide range of difficult enemies, bosses, and items. Each dungeon usually has one major item inside, which is usually essential for solving many of the puzzles within that dungeon and often plays a crucial role in defeating that dungeon's boss, as well as progressing through the game. In nearly every Zelda game, navigating a dungeon is aided by locating a map, which reveals its layout, and a magic compass, which reveals the location of significant and smaller items such as keys and equipment. In later games, the series also included a special big key that would unlock the door to battle the dungeon's boss enemy. In most Zelda games, the player's life meter is represented as a line of hearts. The life meter is replenished a number of different ways, including picking up hearts left by some defeated enemies, fairies or springs located in specific locations, or using an item such as a potion. Most games feature heart containers, or a piece of heart as the prize for defeating the final boss of a dungeon and also for completing certain side quests. Heart containers extend the life meter by 1 heart, and 4 pieces of heart, 5 in the case of Twilight Princess, do the same as a heart container. Both will completely replenish your health. The games pioneered a number of features that were to become industry standards. The original Legend of Zelda was the first console game with a save function that enabled players to stop playing and then resume later. The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time introduced a targeting system that simplified 3D combat.
Music and sound.
Koji Kondo, who has been described as the greatest legend in the video game audio industry, because of his work for Nintendo, has composed much of the music for the series, although the last game for which he was solely responsible for the composition of the soundtrack was The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time. Games in the Legend of Zelda series frequently feature in-game musical instruments, particularly in musical puzzles, which are widespread. Often, instruments trigger game events. For example, the recorder in The Legend of Zelda can reveal secret areas, as well as warp Link to the dungeon entrances. This warping with music feature has also been used in A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening. In Ocarina of Time, playing instruments is a core part of the game, the player needing to play the instrument through the use of the game controller to succeed. Ocarina of Time is first contemporary non-dance title to feature music making as part of its gameplay, using music as a heuristic device and requiring the player to utilize songs to progress in the game, a game mechanic that is also present in Majora's Mask, and several other entries in the series in a less prominent form. The Legend of Zelda theme is a recurring piece of music that was created for the first game of the franchise. The composer, Koji Kondo, initially planned to use Maurice Ravel's Bolero as the game's title theme, but was forced to change it when he learned, late into the game's development cycle, that the copyright for Bolero had not expired yet. Therefore he wrote a new arrangement of the overworld theme within one day. The Zelda theme has topped Screw Attack's top 10 video game themes ever list. To date, the Legend of Zelda series has avoided using voice actors in speaking roles, relying instead on written dialogue. The producer of Skyward Sword has said that, as Link is entirely mute, having the other characters speak while Link remains silent would be off-putting.
Inspiration.
The Legend of Zelda was principally inspired by Shigeru Miyamoto's explorations as a young boy in the hillsides surrounding his childhood home in Sonobe, Japan, where he ventured into forests with secluded lakes, caves, and rural villages. According to Miyamoto, one of his most memorable experiences was the discovery of a cave entrance in the middle of the woods. After some hesitation, he apprehensively entered the cave, and explored its depths with the aid of a lantern. Miyamoto has referred to the creation of the Zelda games as an attempt to bring to life a miniature garden for players to play within each game of the series. Hearing of American novelist F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife Zelda, Miyamoto thought the name sounded pleasant and significant. Paying tribute, he chose to name the princess after her, and titled his creation The Legend of Zelda.
Setting.
The Legend of Zelda series takes place in a fantasy land called Hyrule. Hyrule has developed a deep history and wide geography over the series' many releases. Much of the backstory of the creation of Hyrule was revealed in the games A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. Hyrule's principal inhabitants are elfin humanoids called Hylians, which include the player character, Link, and the eponymous princess, Zelda. According to the in-game backstories, the world of Hyrule was created by the three golden goddesses, Din, Ferori and Nayru. Before departing, the goddesses left a sacred artifact called the Triforce, which could grant the wishes of the user. It consisted of three golden triangles that each embodies one of the goddess's virtues: power, courage and wisdom. However, because the Triforce had no will of its own, it could not judge between good and evil, and so would grant any wish indiscriminately. Because of this, it was placed within an alternate world called the Sacred Realm, or the Golden Land, until one worthy of its power could obtain it. The Sacred Realm can itself be affected by the heart of those who enter it. Those who are pure will make it a paradise, while those who are evil will transform it into a dark realm. In Skyward Sword, the Triforce was sought by a demon named Demise, and after a long battle, Demise was sealed away within the temple of the goddess Hylia, guardian of the Triforce. Hylia, placing the Hylians on a floating island, called Skyloft, in the sky to protect them, orchestrated a means to stop the demon from escaping, creating the goddess sword, later becoming the Master Sword, for her chosen hero and discarding her divinity to be reborn among the people of Skyloft. In time, Zelda and Link, the reborn Hylia and her predestined warrior, enacted the goddess' plan and Demise was destroyed. However, Demise vowed that his rage would be reborn and forever plague those descended from Link and Zelda. That prophecy came to fruition in Ocarina of Time, when Ganondorf's attempt to get the Triforce scattered it, with him gaining the Triforce of Power. The Triforce of Wisdom ended up with the Hylian princesses descended from Zelda, each named after her, while the Triforce of Courage is passed to a youth named Link across generations. While the Triforces of Power and Wisdom have been part of the series since the original The Legend of Zelda, it was only in Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, that the Triforce of Courage was first introduced, being obtained by Link at the end of his quest. The Triforce, or even a piece of it, is not always distributed as a whole. Such as in The Wind Waker, Link must find all the pieces, called Triforce Shards, of the Triforce of Courage before he can return to Hyrule. Even in the original The Legend of Zelda, Zelda breaks her Triforce of Wisdom into 8 pieces for Link to find, before she was captured by Ganon. The fictional universe established by the Zelda games sets the stage for each adventure. Many games take place in lands with their own backstories. Tamina, for example, is a parallel world, while Koholint is an island far away from Hyrule that appears to be part of a dream.
Fictional chronology.
The chronology of the Legend of Zelda series was subject of much debate among fans until an official timeline was released on December 21, 2011 within the collector's book Hyrule Historia, which was originally exclusive to Japan and was later released in the United States. Prior to its release, producers confirmed the existence of a confidential document, which connected all the games. Certain materials and developer statements once partially established an official timeline of the released installments. Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link is a direct sequel to the original The Legend of Zelda, and takes place several years later. The third game, A Link to the Past, is a prequel to the first 2 titles, and is directly followed by Link's Awakening. Ocarina of Time is a prequel that takes the story many centuries back. According to character designer Satoru Takuzawa, it was meant to implicitly tell the imprisoning war from the manual of A Link to the Past. Skyward Sword is then a prequel to Ocarina of Time. Twilight Princess is set more than 100 years after Ocarina of Time. The Wind Waker is parallel, and takes place in the other timeline branch, more than a century after the adult era of Ocarina of Time. Phantom Hourglass is a continuation of the story from The Wind Waker, and is followed by Spirit Tracks, which is set about 100 years later on a supercontinent far away from the setting of The Wind Waker. At the time of his release, Four Swords for the Game Boy Advance was considered the oldest tale in the series' chronology, with Four Swords Adventures set sometime after its events. The Minish Cap precedes the 2 games, telling of the origins of Villain Vati and the creation of the Four Sword. A Link Between Worlds takes place 6 generations after Link to the Past. Important events that occur in the game include the Triforce being reunited, and Ganon being resurrected. Nintendo's 2011 timeline announcement subsequently posits that following Ocarina of Time, the timeline splits into 3 alternate routes. In one, Link fails to defeat Ganon, leading into A Link to the Past, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, Link's Awakening, A Link Between Worlds, The Legend of Zelda and Adventure of Link. In the second and third, Link is successful, leading to a timeline split between his childhood and adulthood. His childhood continues with Majora's Mask, followed by Twilight Princess. The timeline from his adult life continues into Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. In the early 2000s, Nintendo of America released a timeline on Zelda.com, the official website of the Legend of Zelda series, which interpreted all stories up to the Oracle games as the adventures of a single protagonist named Link. At one point, Translator Dan Osen and his co-workers at Nintendo of America had conceived another complete timeline and intended to make it available online. However, the Japanese series developers vetoed the idea, so the timeline would be kept open to the interpretation of the players.
Language.
Hylian language is the main language used in Hyrule, and also spoken in Tamina, Holodrum, and Labrina. The language has never been heard spoken in the game series, except for by 3 specific characters in The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker, only seen written with its fictional writing systems which changed from game to game.
Characters. Link.
The protagonist of The Legend of Zelda series, Link, is the name of various young men who characteristically wear a green tunic and a pointed cap. In most games, the player can give Link a different name before the start of the adventure, and he will be referred by that given name throughout by the NPCs. Each Link is described on the series' official website as humble, hard-working and brave, and therefore appropriate to bear the Triforce of Courage. The various Links each have a special title, such as Hero of Time, Hero of the Winds, or Hero Chosen by the Gods. Link is left-handed, with 2 exceptions. In the Wii version of Twilight Princess, Link is right-handed due to the mirroring used to accommodate the right-handed control scheme, which flips the entire game world's layout from that of its Nintendo GameCube counterpart. Link is also right-handed in the title Skyward Sword for the same reason. Also in the manual for the original game, he is depicted as being right-handed, and in the game itself, Link is seen as ambidextrous because whether he is facing left or right, his sword is in the down screen side. Like many silent protagonists in video games, Link does not speak, only producing grunts, yells, or similar sounds. Despite the player not seeing the dialogue, it is referenced second-hand by in-game characters, showing that he is not, in fact, mute. Link is shown as a silent protagonist so that the audience is able to have their own thoughts as to how their Link would answer the characters instead of him having scripted responses.
Princess Zelda.
Princess Zelda is the Princess of Hyrule and the Guardian of the Triforce of Wisdom. Her name is present in many of her female ancestors and descendants. While most titles require Link to save Zelda from Ganon, she sometimes plays a supporting role in battle, using magical powers and weapons such as light arrows to aid Link. With the exception of the CDI games, which were not official Nintendo games, she was not playable in the main series until Spirit Tracks, where she becomes a spirit and can possess a Phantom Knight that can be controlled by the player. Zelda also appears under various other aliases and alter egos, including Sheik, in Ocarina of Time, and Tetra, in The Wind Waker and Phantom Hourglass. In Skyward Sword, it is revealed that the Zelda of that game is a reincarnation of the goddess Hylia, whose power flows through the royal bloodline. Shigeru Miyamoto used the name Zelda from American novelist Zelda Fitzgerald.
Ganondorf.
Ganon, also known as Ganondorf in his humanoid form, is the main antagonist and the final boss in the majority of Zelda games. In the series, Ganondorf is the leader of a race of desert brigands called the Gerudo, which consists entirely of female warriors save for one man born every 100 years. He is significantly taller than other human NPCs, but his looks vary between games. His specific motives vary from game to game, but most often they include him kidnapping Princess Zelda and planning to achieve domination of Hyrule and presumably the world beyond it. To this end, he seeks the Triforce, a powerful magical relic. He often possesses a portion of the Triforce called the Triforce of Power, which gives him great strength. However, it is often not enough to accomplish his ends, leading him to hunt the remaining Triforce pieces. Unlike Link, Zelda, and most other recurring characters, he is actually the same person in every game, with the exception of Four Swords Adventures, where he is a reincarnation of the original. In each game the battles with him are different and he fights using different styles. The game Skyward Sword indicates that Ganon is a reincarnation of an evil deity known as Demise.
History. 1980s.
The Legend of Zelda, The first game of the series, was first released in Japan on February 21, 1986, on the Famicom Disk System. A cartridge version, using battery-backed memory, was released in the United States on August 22, 1987, and Europe on November 27, 1987. The game features a second quest, accessible either upon completing the game, or by registering one's name as Zelda, when starting a new quest. The second quest features different dungeons and item placement, and more difficult enemies. The second game, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, was released for the Famicom Disk System in Japan in January 14, 1987, and for the Nintendo Entertainment System in Europe in November 1988 and North America in December 1988. The game exchanged the top-down perspective for side-scrolling, though the top-down point of view was retained for overworld areas, and introduced RPG elements, such as experience points, not used previously or thereafter in the series. The Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2 were released in gold-colored cartridges instead of the console's regular gray cartridges. Both were re-released in the final years of the Nintendo Entertainment System with gray cartridges.
1990s.
4 years later, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past returned to the top-down view, under a three-quarters perspective, and added the concept of an alternate dimension, the Dark World. The game was released for the SNES in November 21, 1991. It was later re-released for the Game Boy Advance on March 14, 2003, in North America, on a cartridge with 4 swords, the first multiplayer Zelda, and then through Nintendo's Virtual Console service on January 22, 2007. In addition, both this game, unchanged, except for being converted into a downloadable format, and an exclusive loosely based sequel, which used the same game engine, called BS Zelda no Densetsu Inishi no Sekiban, were released on the Satellaview in Japan on March 2, 1997, and March 30, 1997, respectively. In 1994, near the end of the Famicom's lifespan, the original Famicom game was re-released in cartridge format. A modified version, BS Zelda no Densetsu, was released for the Super Famicom's satellite-based expansion, Satellaview, on August 6, 1995, in Japan. A second Satellaview title, BS Zelda no Densetsu MAP2, was released for the Satellaview on December 30, 1995. Both titles featured rearranged dungeons, an altered overworld, and new voice-acted plot lines. The next game, Link's Awakening, is the first Zelda for Nintendo's Game Boy handheld, and the first set outside Hyrule and to exclude Princess Zelda. It was released in 1993, and re-released, in full color, as a launch title for the Game Boy Color in 1998 as Link's Awakening DX. This re-release features additions such as an extra color-based dungeon and a photo shop that allows interaction with the Game Boy printer. After another hiatus, the series made the transition to 3D with Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64, which was released in November 1998. This game, initially known as Zelda 64, retains the core gameplay of the previous 2D games, and was very successful commercially and critically. It ranks highly on IGN and EGM's greatest games of all time lists, and scored perfect scores in several video game publications. In February 2006, it was ranked by Nintendo Power as the best game released for a Nintendo console. The game was originally developed for the poorly selling, Japanese-only Nintendo 64DD, but was ported to cartridge format when the 64DD hardware was delayed. A new gameplay mechanic, lock-on targeting, called Z-targeting as that is the controller button used, is used in the game, which focuses the camera on a nearby target and alters the player's actions relative to that target. Such mechanics allow precise sword fighting in a 3D space. The game also heavily used context-sensitive button play, which enabled the player to control various actions with Link using only one button on the Nintendo 64's gamepad. Each action was handled slightly differently but all used the A button to perform. For instance, standing next to a block and pressing A made Link grab it, enabling him to push-pull it, but moving forwards into a block and pressing A allowed Link to climb the block. The B button was used only as an attack button. The game featured the first appearance of Link's horse, Epona, allowing Link to travel quickly across land and fire arrows from horseback. Those who pre-ordered the game received a gold-colored cartridge in a limited edition box with a golden plastic card affixed, reading Collector's Edition. In some stores that had this collector's edition quickly sold out, a small and rare Zelda pin was given instead. It is the sword and shield emblem with Zelda written on it. Very few of them are known to remain. Ocarina of Time was re-released on the Nintendo GameCube in 2002, when it was offered as a pre-order incentive for the Wind Waker in the US, Canada and Japan. Europe continued to receive it free in every copy of the Wind Waker, except for the discounted Player's Choice version. It includes what is widely believed to be the remnants of a cancelled 64DD expansion for Ocarina of Time known as Euro Zelda in early development. Named Ocarina of Time Master Quest, the game was given the addition of revamped, more difficult dungeon layouts. Ocarina of Time was included as part of Collector's Edition for the GameCube in 2003. It is now available through the Wii Virtual Console service. In 2011, Nintendo released a new version of the game in stereoscopic 3D for the Nintendo 3DS titled The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time 3D.
2000s.
Ocarina of Time's follow-up, Majora's Mask, was released in April 2000. It uses the same 3D game engine as the previous game, and added a time-based concept, in which Link, the protagonist, relives the events of 3 days as many times as needed to complete the game's objectives. It was originally called Zelda Gaiden, a Japanese title that translates as Zelda Side Story. Gameplay changed significantly. In addition to the time limit, Link can use masks to transform into creatures with unique abilities. While Majora's Mask retains the graphical style of Ocarina of Time, it is also a departure, particularly in its atmosphere. It also features motion blur, unlike its predecessor. The game is darker, dealing with death and tragedy in a manner not previously seen in the series, and has a sense of impending doom, as a large moon slowly descends upon the land of Tamina to destroy all life. All copies of Majora's Mask are gold cartridges. A limited collector's edition lenticular cartridge label was offered as the pre-order incentive. Copies of the game that were not collector's editions featured a regular sticker cartridge label. Majora's Mask was also included in the collector's edition, and is now available on the Virtual Console. The next two games, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages, were released simultaneously for the Game Boy Color, and interact using passwords or a game link cable. After one game has been completed, the player is given a password that allows the other game to be played as a sequel. They were developed by Flagship in conjunction with Nintendo, with supervision from Miyamoto. After the team experimented with porting the original The Legend of Zelda to the Game Boy Color, they decided to make an original trilogy to be called the Tree 4 series. When the password system linking the three games proved too troublesome, the concept was reduced to 2 games at Miyamoto's suggestion. These 2 games became Oracle of Ages, which is more puzzle-based, and Oracle of Seasons, which is more action-oriented. When Nintendo revealed the GameCube on August 24, 2000, the day before Nintendo's Space World 2000 exposition, a software demonstration showed a realistically styled real-time duel between Ganondorf and Link. Fans and the media speculated that the battle might be from a Zelda game in development. At Space World 2001, Nintendo showed a cel-shaded Zelda title, later released as The Wind Waker in December 2002. Due to poor reception, nothing further was shown until a playable demonstration was ready. Miyamoto felt The Wind Waker would extend Zelda's reach to all ages. The gameplay centers on controlling wind with a baton called the Wind Waker, and sailing a small boat around an island-filled ocean, retaining similar gameplay mechanics as the previous 3D games in the series. Following the release of The Wind Waker came The Legend of Zelda, Collector's Edition, which included the original The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, and a demo of The Wind Waker. GameSpot noted that Majora's Mask suffered from a frame rate which appeared choppier and inconsistencies in the audio. This compilation was never sold commercially, and originally could only be obtained by purchasing a GameCube bundled with the disc, in North America, Europe and Australia, by registering a GameCube and 2 games at Nintendo.com, or by subscribing or renewing a subscription to Nintendo Power, in North America, or Club Nintendo in Sweden. In the UK, 1,000 copies were made available through the Club Nintendo Stars catalogue program. After these were quickly claimed, Nintendo gave a copy to customers who mailed in proof of purchases from select Nintendo GameCube games. The next game released in the series was Four Swords Adventures for the GameCube, which was released in early 2004 in Japan and America, and January 2005 in Europe. Based on the handheld Four Swords Adventures was another deviation from previous Zelda gameplay, focusing on level-based and multiplayer gameplay. The game contains 24 levels and a map screen. There is no connecting overworld. For multiplayer features, each player must use a Game Boy Advance system linked to the Nintendo GameCube via a Nintendo GameCube Game Boy Advance cable. The game also features a single-player campaign, in which using a Game Boy Advance is optional. Four Swords Adventures includes 2 gameplay modes, Hyrulean Adventure, with a plot and gameplay similar to other Zelda games, and Shadow Battle, in which multiple links, played by multiple players, battle each other. The Japanese and Korean versions include an exclusive third segment, Navi Trackers, originally designed as the standalone game Tetris Trackers, which contains spoken dialogue for most of the characters, unlike other games in the Legend of Zelda series. In November 2004 in Japan and Europe, and January 2005 in America, Nintendo released the Minish Cap for the Game Boy Advance. In the Minish Cap, Link can shrink in size using a mystical, sentient hat named Islo. While shrunk, he can see previously explored parts of a dungeon from a different perspective, and enter areas through otherwise impassable openings. In November 2006, Twilight Princess was released as the first Zelda game on the Wii, and later, in December 2006, as the last official Nintendo game for the Nintendo GameCube, the console for which it was originally developed. The Wii version features a reversed world. Everything that is in the West on the GameCube is in the East on the Wii, and vice versa. The game was mirrored in order to make Link right-handed, to make use of the Wii remote feel more natural. The game chronicles the struggle of an older Link to clear the troubles of the interacting Twilight Realm, a mysterious force that appears around Hyrule. When he enters this realm, he is transformed into a wolf, and loses the ability to use his sword, shield or other items, but gains other abilities such as sharpened senses from his new form. Twilight Princess includes an incarnation of Link's horse, Epona, for fast transportation, and features mounted battle scenarios including boss battles that were not seen in previous titles. Twilight Princess diverted from the cel shading of Wind Waker and went for graphics featuring more detailed textures, giving the game a darker atmosphere, thus making it feel more adult than previous games. At the 2006 Game Developers Conference, a trailer for Phantom Hourglass for the Nintendo DS was shown. It revealed traditional top-down Zelda gameplay optimized for the DS features, with a cel-shaded 3D graphical style similar to the Wind Waker. At E3 2006, Nintendo confirmed the game's status as a direct sequel to the Wind Waker, and released an extensive playable demo, including a multiplayer mode with Capture the Flag elements. Phantom Hourglass was released on June 23, 2007, in Japan, October 1, 2007, in North America and October 19, 2007, in Europe. The next Legend of Zelda for the DS, The Legend of Zelda, Spirit Tracks, was released December 7, 2009, in North America and December 11, 2009, in the UK. In this game, the Spirit Tracks, railroads which chain an ancient evil, are disappearing from Hyrule. Zelda and Link go to the Spirit Tower, the ethereal point of convergence for the tracks, to find out why. But villains steal Zelda's body for the resurrection of the Demon King. Rendered disembodied, Zelda is left a spirit, and only Link, and a certain few sages, can see her. Together they go on a quest to restore the spirit tracks, defeat the Demon King, and return Zelda to her body. Using a modified engine of that used in Phantom Hourglass, the notably new feature in this game is that the Phantom Guardians seen in Phantom Hourglass are, through a series of events, periodically controllable. It was the first time in the series that both Link and Zelda worked together on the quest.
2010s.
In April 2008, Miyamoto stated that the Zelda team is forming again to work on new games. Miyamoto clarified in July that the Zelda team had been working on a new Zelda game for the Wii. In January 2010, Nintendo executive Satoru Iwata stated that the game would be coming out at some time in 2010, and also confirmed that the game would make use of the Wii's Motion Plus feature, which had been announced too late to be integrated into the Twilight Princess Wii release. The game's subtitle was announced at E3 in 2010 as Skyward Sword, but its release was delayed to 2011. The game, the earliest in the Legend of Zelda timeline, reveals the origins of Hyrule, Ganon and many elements featured in previous games. It was released on November 20, 2011. The first run included a 25th anniversary CD of fully orchestrated music from various Zelda games, including Skyward Sword. In addition, Nintendo celebrated the 25th anniversary of the Legend of Zelda game by releasing a Zelda game for all its current consoles in 2011, Link's Awakening in the 3DS's Virtual Console on June 7, Ocarina of Time 3D for the 3DS in mid-June, Four Swords Anniversary Edition on September 28, 2011 to February 20, 2012 as a free DSiWare download, and Skyward Sword for the Wii, which was released on November 18, 2011 in Europe, November 20, 2011 in the United States and November 24, 2011 in Australia. A limited edition Zelda 25th Anniversary 3DS was also released on December 1, 2011 in Australia. The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker HD, a remake of the original GameCube game, was released by Nintendo on September 20 digitally on the Nintendo eShop in North America, with a retail release on September 26 in Japan, October 4 in North America and Europe, October 5 in Australia. A month later, Nintendo released The Legend of Zelda, A Link Between Worlds for the Nintendo 3DS, which takes place in the same setting as A Link to the Past.
Future.
Nintendo showcased a demo reel at E3 2011 which depicted Link fighting a monster in HD. In late January 2013, Nintendo revealed that an unnamed Zelda title is being planned for the Wii U. Aonuma announced that he'll reveal more info about the new Wii U Zelda title at E3 2014. On December 18, 2013, Nintendo announced a collaboration with Team Koei's Dynasty Warriors franchise tentatively titled Hyrule Warriors, which will be released in 2014 for Wii U.
Other games. CDI games.
A series of video games were developed and released for the Philips CDI in the early 1990s as a product of a compromise between Philips and Nintendo, after the companies failed to develop a CD-based peripheral for the Super Nintendo. Created with no influence from Nintendo, the games are Link, The Faces of Evil, Zelda, The Wand of Gamelon, and Zelda's Adventure. Nintendo never acknowledged them in the Zelda timeline, and they are considered to be in a separate, self-contained canon.
LCD games.
3 Zelda-themed LCD games were created between 1989 and 1992. The Zelda version of Nintendo's Game & Watch series was released first in August 1989 as a dual-screen handheld electronic game similar in appearance to today's Nintendo DS. It was re-released in 1998 as a Toymax, Incorporated Mini Classic and was later included as an unlockable extra in Game & Watch Gallery 4, a 2002 compilation for the Game Boy Advance. While the Game & Watch Zelda was developed in-house by Nintendo, the subsequent 2 LCD games were developed by third parties under license by Nintendo. In October 1989, The Legend of Zelda was developed by Sonic as part of its Game Watch line. This game was an actual digital watch with primitive gameplay based on the original Legend of Zelda. In 1992, Epoch Company developed Zelda no Densetsu, Kamigami no Triforce for its barcode Battle 2 console. The game employed card scanning technology similar to the later released Nintendo e-reader.
Cancelled games.
There have been several titles in the Legend of Zelda series that have never been released for various reasons. One such title was The Legend of Zelda, Mystical Seed of Courage for Game Boy Color. When Yoshiki Okamoto worked to develop Zelda titles for the Game Boy Color, his Capcom team decided to create a series of 3 games. Referred to as the Tree-4 series, the games were known as The Legend of Zelda, The Mysterious Acorn, Chapter of Power, Chapter of Wisdom, and Chapter of Courage in Japan, and The Legend of Zelda, Mystical Seed of Power, Mystical Seed of Wisdom, and Mystical Seed of Courage in the US. The games were to interact using a password system, but the limitations of this system and the difficulty of coordinating 3 games proved too complicated, so the team scaled back to 2 titles at Miyamoto's suggestion. The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Seasons was adapted from Mystical Seed of Power, The Legend of Zelda, Oracle of Ages was adapted from Mystical Seed of Wisdom, and Mystical Seed of Courage was cancelled. Another title is The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time Ura, intended to be an expansion disc for Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64DD. For a long time the game was not released as the N64DD was never sold outside of Japan due to poor sales. Prior to the release of The Wind Waker, a bonus disc called The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time Master Quest was released, containing an official N64 emulator that only ran the 2 ROMs on the disc, which were versions of Ocarina of Time and Ocarina of Time Ura, with a number of GUI textures and text modified to reflect the Nintendo GameCube. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series, Nintendo of America originally had planned to release a compilation of titles together for the Wii, similar to the collector's edition disc released for the GameCube in 2003. However, Nintendo of Japan's president Satoru Iwata and Shigeru Miyamoto eventually disagreed in releasing it, believing it would be too similar to the Super Mario 25th anniversary game released in 2010. At one point both Link and Samus from the Metroid series were planned to be playable characters for the Wii version of Marvel, Ultimate Alliance. However, they didn't make the final release because they weren't Marvel characters.
Spin-off games.
As the franchise has grown in popularity, several titles have been released that are set within or star a minor character from the universe of The Legend of Zelda but are not directly connected to the main The Legend of Zelda series. Both map versions of the title BS Zelda no Densetsu for the Satellaview, released in August and December 1995, could be considered spin-offs due to the fact that they star the Hero of Light, portrayed by either the Satellaview's male or female avatar, as opposed to Link as the protagonist of Hyrule. A third Satellaview title released in March 1997, BS Zelda no Densetsu Inishi no Sekuban, BS The Legend of Zelda, Ancient Stone Tablets, could also be considered a spin-off for the same reason. Other spin-off titles include Freshly Picked Tingle's Rosy Repellent for the Nintendo DS, an RPG released in September 2006 in Japan, summer of 2007 in the UK, to star supporting character Tingle. A second Tingle title is Tingle's Balloon Fight DS for the Nintendo DS. Here Tingle again stars in this spin-off arcade-style platformer, released in April 2007 only in Japan and available solely to Platinum Club Nintendo members. In addition to titles in which Link does not star as the protagonist, games such as the shooter title, Link's Crossbow Training, for the Wii, have been considered spin-offs due to the lack of a traditional Save Hyrule plotline. Released in November 2007 as a bundle with the Wii Zapper, this game allows players to assume the identity of Link as he progresses through a series of tests to perfect his crossbow marksmanship. Color-changing Tingle's Love Balloon Trip was released in Japan in 2009 as a sequel to Freshly Picked Tingle's Rosy Repellent. Hyrule Warriors, the crossover game between Nintendo's The Legend of Zelda series, and Tecmo Koei's Dynasty Warriors series was announced for the Nintendo Wii U video game system on December 18, 2013 and was be released on 2014.
Cameos.
Characters from and references to the Legend of Zelda series have appeared in a variety of other video games that go beyond what is considered a typical cameo appearance. This may include major story elements, character development, and even affect major game features. Link appears as a fighter in Super Smash Bros. For the Nintendo 64. Link is also a fighter in Super Smash Bros. Melee for the Nintendo GameCube, appearing alongside Zelda, who is able to transform into Sheik, Ganondorf, and young Link, the child version of Link from Ocarina of Time. These characters all have their basic appearance and items as seen in Ocarina of Time. In Super Smash Bros. Brawl for the Wii, all of Melee's Zelda characters make a return, upgraded to their models and items from Twilight Princess, with the exception of young Link, who is replaced by Toon Link, from The Wind Waker. Link, Toon Link, Zelda, and Sheik also return in the upcoming Nintendo game Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS and Wii U. Each game in the Super Smash Bros. Series also features several stages and items based on the Legend of Zelda franchise. Link appears as an exclusive fighter in the GameCube version of Soul Calibur 2. Link features prominently in several micro-games from the WarioWare series. In the Nintendo Skip Limited game Captain Rainbow, Crazy Tracy from Link's Awakening is one of the featured characters where she wants to enslave all men in the world. One of the levels, World 5-2, in Super Mario 3D Land references The Legend of Zelda. The 2013 iOS video game Oceanhorn, Monster of Uncharted Seas is a close adaptation of the Zelda franchise's gameplay and game design principles. In Sonic Lost World, a DLC stage based on the Legend of Zelda series was released on March 27, 2014, named The Legend of Zelda Zone. The stage features design elements from multiple entries in the Zelda series, including Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword. While built around the core gameplay mechanics of Sonic Lost World, The Legend of Zelda Zone also incorporates some elements from the Zelda series, including a heart-based vitality meter, rupee collection, and a miniature dungeon to explore. A picture of the Link from the original NES game can be formed on World Star 1 in Super Mario 3D World by stepping on the buttons while defeating enemies.
Reception and legacy.
The Legend of Zelda series has received outstanding levels of acclaim from critics and the public. Ocarina of Time, The Wind Waker and Skyward Sword have each received a perfect 40/40 score. 10/10 by 4 reviewers, by Japanese Famitsu magazine, making Zelda one of the few series with multiple perfect scores. Computer and Video Games awarded The Wind Waker and Twilight Princess a score of 10/10. A Link to the Past has one gold award from Electronic Gaming Monthly. In Nintendo Power's Top 200 countdown in 2004, Ocarina of Time took first place, and 7 other Zelda games placed in the top 40. Twilight Princess was named Game of the Year by X-Play, Game Trailers, 1UP, Electronic Gaming Monthly, Spacey Awards, Game Informer, GameSpy, Nintendo Power, IGN, and many other websites. The editors of review aggregator websites Game Rankings, IGN and Metacritic have all given Ocarina of Time their highest aggregate scores. Game Informer awarded The Wind Waker, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword with a score of 10/10. Phantom Hourglass was named DS Game of the Year by IGN and GameSpy. Airing December 10, 2011, Spike TV's annual Video Game Awards gave the series the first ever Hall of Fame award, which Miyamoto accepted in person. Ocarina of Time and its use of melodic themes to identify different game regions has been called a reverse of Richard Wagner's use of leitmotifs to identify characters and themes. Ocarina of Time was so well received that sales increased for real ocarinas. IGN praised the music of Majora's Mask for its brilliance despite its heavy use of MIDI. The Legend of Zelda franchise has sold over 67.93 million copies by 2011, with the original The Legend of Zelda being the 4th best-selling NES game of all time. The series was ranked as the 64th top game, collectively, by Next Generation in 1996. The Legend of Zelda franchise is the inaugural recipient of Spike TV's first-ever Video Game Hall of Fame award, inducted on December 10, 2011 during the 2011 Spike Video Game Awards. According to British film magazine Empire, with the most vividly realized world and the most varied gameplay of any title on any console, Zelda is a solid bet for the best game series ever.
Impact.
The Legend of Zelda series has led to many influences, parodies, and pranks in popular culture. Among celebrities, professional wrestler Cody Ronalds, better known as Cody Rhodes, is a fan of the series and has stated he replays A Link to the Past annually. His wrestling boots feature a Triforce symbol. Actor-comedian Robin Williams revealed in a November 26, 2009 interview with Jimmy Fallon that his daughter Zelda Ray is named after the title character in the series. In 2011, both Williams and his daughter starred together in an advertisement for Ocarina of Time 3D. In August 2013, talk show host Jimmy Fallon stated that The Legend of Zelda was his favorite video game. In film, the 2010 film adaptation of Scott Pilgrim vs. the World makes multiple references to the Zelda games and the soundtrack, including use of the fairy fountain theme in one of the film's dream sequences, and the chest opening sound effect and opening theme from A Link to the Past. In music, Canadian musician Owen Pallett references several Zelda titles in the lyrics for He Poos Clouds, released in 2006. In literature, the cover of the first edition of Nicholas Andrews's humorous fantasy novel, The Adventure Tournament, 2011, is a parody of the Legend of Zelda title screen. The author states that it is fitting, since he was introduced to fantasy through the first The Legend of Zelda game. Link's hat is also referenced in the book as a possible piece of equipment for the main character, Remy, who rejects it on the grounds that it would make him look kind of like a big green bean. He then brushes off a response that one of the world's greatest warriors wore a similar cap. In parodies and pranks, an episode of the Powerpuff Girls which features the mayor of Townsville playing a spoof of Ocarina of Time. In 2008, IGN.com made a fan-film trailer based on The Legend of Zelda as an April Fool's Day prank. The Legend of Neil is a web video series that aired on Comedy Central, spoofing the original The Legend of Zelda game. In television, in a The Big Bang Theory episode, Sheldon and Leonard return home to discover someone has robbed them. When the police ask what was stolen, Sheldon mentions several Zelda titles among the stolen items. In episode 6 Sean, interrupted in season 6 of Psych, young Sean remarks to his father that he is going upstairs to play Zelda, in an episode of Jeopardy! Which aired on July 12, 2013. The title of the original game was the correct response to the clue in Final Jeopardy! The clue was a reference to Princess Zelda being named after Zelda Fitzgerald, the title princess of this game, which launched a best-selling franchise, was named for F. Scott Fitzgerald's wife. In an episode of The Goldbergs TV series, Adam almost completed The Legend of Zelda, after much effort and left the room to get his camera. But, his brother unknowingly continued and finished the game, to Adam's anger. At the end of the episode, his brother makes it up to him by giving him a new copy of Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, and offer to play it together. In The Amazing World of Gumball TV series, they make 3 references. The first reference takes place in The Promise when Gumball gets a game called The Tales of Zelda, supposedly based on The Legend of Zelda. The second reference takes place in The Promise when he opens the game. It makes the Zelda treasure chest sound. The third reference takes place in The Treasure when the light hits the chimney. They play the Zelda secret sound. Video game creators. Okami director Hideki Kamiya states that he has been influenced by the Legend of Zelda series in developing the title. The developers of the game Dark Sector have stated they have been heavily influenced by the Legend of Zelda series, and that the structure of the game is much like a Zelda game. Fable series creator Peter Molyneux stated that Twilight Princess is one of his favorite games. I just feel it's jaw-dropping and its use of the hardware was brilliant. And I've played that game through several times, he said to Tech Radar.
Other media. TV series.
A 13-episode animated series The Legend of Zelda, adapted by DC and distributed by Viacom Enterprises, screened in 1989. The animated Zelda shorts were aired each Friday, instead of the usual Super Mario Bros. Cartoon that aired during the rest of the week. The series loosely followed the NES Zelda games, mixing settings and characters from those games with original creations. The show's incarnations of an older Link and Zelda also appeared in various episodes of Captain N, the Game Master during its second season.
Print media.
Valiant Comics released a short-lived series of comics featuring characters and settings from the Zelda cartoon as part of their Nintendo Comics System line. In addition, manga have been created based on the many of the series' games, including A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, the Oracle series, Four Swords Adventures, The Minish Cap and Phantom Hourglass. These cartoons are usually not involved with the chronology of the actual games. A number of official books, novels and game books have been released based on the series as well. Earliest was Moblin's Magic Spear, published in 1989 by Western Publishing, incorporated under their Golden Books range and written by Jack C. Harris. It took place sometime during the first game. 2 gamebooks were published as part of the Nintendo Adventure Books series by Archway, both written by Matt Wayne. The first was The Crystal Trap, which focuses more on Zelda, and the second, titled The Shadow Prince, both released in 1992. A novel based on Ocarina of Time was released in 1999, written by Jason A. Rich and published by Sybes Incorporated under their Pathways to Adventure series. Another 2 gamebooks were released as part of the You Decide on the Adventure series published by Scholastic. The first based on Oracle of Seasons released in 2001 and the second based on Oracle of Ages released in 2002, both written by Craig Vessel. In 2006, Scholastic released a novel as part of their Nintendo Heroes series, titled Link and the Portal of Doom. It was written by Tracy West and was set shortly after the events of Ocarina of Time. In 2011, to coincide with the 25th anniversary of the series, an art book was published exclusively in Japan under the name Hyrule Historia by Shogakukan. It contains concept art from the series' conception to the release of Skyward Sword in 2011, multiple essays about the production of the games, and reveal the series' overarching timeline, not explicitly stated in any of the games. It also includes a prequel manga to Skyward Sword by Zelda manga duo Akira Himekawa. The book had an international release by Oregon-based publisher Dark Horse Comics on January 29, 2013, and the book took the #1 spot on Amazon's sales chart, taking the spot away from E.L. James's 50 Shades of Grey trilogy.
Music.
Taking place in Cologne, Germany, on September 23, 2010, the video game music concert Symphonic Legends focused on music from Nintendo and, among others, featured titles such as The Legend of Zelda. Following an intermission, the second half of the concert was entirely dedicated to an expansive symphonic poem dedicated to the series. The 35-minute epic tells the story of Link's evolution from child to hero. To celebrate the 25th anniversary of the series in 2011, Nintendo commissioned an original symphony, The Legend of Zelda, Symphony of the Goddesses. The show was originally performed in the fall of 2011 in Los Angeles and consists of live performances of much of the music from the series. It has since been scheduled for 18 shows so far throughout the United States and Canada. Nintendo also released a CD titled The Legend of Zelda 25th Anniversary Special Orchestra CD featuring 8 tracks from live performances of the symphony. The CD was included alongside the special edition of The Legend of Zelda, Skyward Sword for the Nintendo Wii. In 2011, electronic artist Zed released a dance-style track named The Legend of Zelda on iTunes. It features many of the 8-bit sounds from the original Zelda. Violinist Lindsey Sterling has released a single called Zelda Medley in 2011, along with a popular YouTube video in which she herself is dressed as Link. She has also done a violin duet version of the song as well.
Potential films.
In 2007, Imagi Animation Studios, who provided the animation for TMNT and Astro Boy, created a pitch reel for a computer-animated Legend of Zelda movie. Nintendo, who had previously had a bad experience from the critical and financial failure of the Super Mario Bros. Film adaptation, did not take the studio up on their offer. In 2013, Aonuma stated that, if a film were to move forward, the company would want to use the opportunity to embrace audience interaction in some capacity.